What is going on, moto friends? If you saw my last video, the last ride on the Ducati Monster, I told you that there was a special motorcycle in my future. So today I'm at the Warhorse Camp Hill dealership picking up this bike. So let's see what it is. So I went with the Ducati Streetfighter V4S. So in this video, I'm gonna do a first ride impression, tell you why I decided to go with this motorcycle, and I'll tell you all the specs and everything in future videos, but today is just kind of raw feeling, first time getting on this bike. And if you like this type of content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's gonna be a lot more of this bike coming up in the future. Before we get started though, let's hear the first startup of this bike for me. This beautiful undercarriage exhaust. Alright guys, really excited about this bike, Streetfighter V4S. I didn't want to get rid of the Monster, but the deal on this bike, 2023 year end, was fantastic. Great APR, great trade-in value, so I could not resist this deal. I'm excited to see what this V4 engine's all about. I'm excited to see the sound once I start finally riding it. The only thing that's frustrating is for the break-in period, you're not supposed to take it over 6,000 RPM for the first 600 miles. So it's going to be more of a tame ride, but at least I'll get an idea of kind of body positioning and kind of feel of the throttle and things like that. So I'm excited to let you know my thoughts and let you know eventually if this is a bike that you might want to purchase. So I am going to kind of loop out of this dealership a little bit, talk to you about where I got this bike, and then take a brief pause until I get to some more familiar roads, and then I'll talk about my feelings. So let's do it. Ooh. So the first thing I notice getting on this is the height of this motorcycle. So the Ducati Monster is a bit of a slightly lower seat height, and when I do my full sit-down review, I'm going to give you the exact specifics of the seat heights for both models. But this I do notice is a little bit taller. I'm not fully flat-footed as I was with the Monster, but still I'm about 5'11" 6 feet tall in my boots. And it's still, very comfortable to flat foot. The tank is fairly narrow in the center here, so really not a big deal to flat foot. The seat is firm but comfortable, nicely padded. And then the riding position, it is a bit more leaned forward than the Monster, but not as much weight on the wrists and palms as with a Super Sport. So let's lift the kickstand, which is really far forward. It was interesting. Yeah, the kickstand's a lot farther forward, so it might get some getting used to. It's in front of the quick shifter. So let's pop it into gear. Clutch is nice and smooth, nice and light. You can already feel the engagement point of the brakes is really firm. So overall, feels very nice quality. So let's get out of here. Ooh. Did you notice that change in sound between neutral and first gear? That is phenomenal. Let me see if I can recreate that. If I can find neutral. There's neutral. So you hear the bike got real quiet all of a sudden. The rear cylinder deactivation actually turns off the rear two cylinders so that you're not frying your thighs and your other important bits when you're sitting at a stop in the sun. So once you kick into first gear, I'm going to shut up to hear it. All four cylinders engaged, and you get a really beautiful sound. So let me do that real quick. Oof, that is a nice rumble. Let's hear it a little bit. Man, that is beautiful. So let's see the clutch engagement point. Nice. Friction zone is very similar to the Monster, so should be pretty easy. And then also, these are just such bad mirrors, man. Oh yeah. I can't wait till I get my rhizomas back on there. I can barely see anything, so we're gonna have to get those mirrors changed out ASAP. So. All right, so the dealership, we're at the Warhorse Camp Hill. This is the first time up here since it's in Pennsylvania and I live in Maryland. But I had a pretty bad experience with a dealership down in Maryland, so I wanted to get this bike elsewhere. And also something I noticed, the U-turns might be a little tough on this bike. That steering lock doesn't give you much space to operate, so we'll figure that out. But anyways, Camp Hill, here it is. They do BMW, KTM, Piaggio, Vespa, Ducati. They do a ton of bikes, and everyone I encountered was really friendly, so I'd recommend it if you're in the Pennsylvania or bordering area. I am starting to feel a little bit of that heat on my inner leg from this engine, but that is to be expected with Ducati. So I'm just going to pull off, stop the recording for a second, then once I get onto some familiar roads where I can actually do some stuff on this bike, we will resume. So pause for a second. All right, guys, some familiar roads. We're back in Maryland. That little first stretch of Pennsylvania wasn't really great for filming or for talking. A lot of small cities, speed limits of 30 to 40 miles an hour, so it was, to be quite honest, not very pleasant. So I can't take this bike over 6,000 RPMs. There's a lot of school buses, trucks, so I was going very slow. And the first thing I noticed that it is a little bit hot, but not as bad as I expected. So on the Ducati Monster, I got a lot of heat under my right knee and under my thigh. But with this bike, I kind of feel it in my right boot, so it's not too bad. When you stop and the radiator turns on, you feel the heat a little bit on your left thigh. But again, not too bad. I was going mostly in second, third gear, maximum speed 40 miles an hour. So the heat really isn't too bad. When you're cruising 50 and up, 60 miles an hour, it actually feels quite nice, and it's 84 Fahrenheit outside, so pretty warm day. Pretty impressed that the heat is not as bad as I expected. The next thing I noticed is the comfort. So the seat does feel plush, but it is very firm, and I have a bony ass, so I do feel some pressure points, like right under where my pelvic bones are. I don't know how much of that has to do. I'm wearing a pretty large backpack with all the accessories and the pegs and everything that came with this bike. So I'll have to kind of circle back to that when I'm doing the full review. And then the other thing that I noticed also is, since it's in the break-in period, 600 miles below 6,000 RPM, it's very tame at those RPMs and very smooth, to be honest. So going through the city at 4,000, 5,000 RPMs, the engine wasn't lugging a lot. The only time I noticed some engine lug was in first gear at around 2,000, 3,000 RPM. But this bike rips up to 14.5, 15,000 RPM. So that's not bad at all. So I think these next 600 miles might not be the most interesting, but it will be at least a smooth ride. So I am excited to get the break-in service completed, just so I can see what this engine can actually do. And then once I'm closer to home and know the roads better, I can see kind of how much it does pull below 6,000 RPMs. Most of this time, I've just been giving it very little throttle. This is a really high displacement engine, so really any sort of throttle modulation, the bike reacts very well. So that's another thing. I do like a reactive, twitchy throttle, and even in this road mode, you get that with this motorcycle. So really easy to kind of modulate exactly how much throttle you're giving, and to kind of know where this bike will accelerate. So really, other than that, the fuel mileage is the other thing that I kind of heard some stories about. The range isn't the best on this bike, and right now I've put 64 miles total on this bike. So we'll see how much gas the dealer actually gave us. So about 10, 15 more miles until I get home. So hopefully the fuel indicator light does not turn on. And you've heard this a million times, but in this 2023 update, there is still no fuel gauge. Come on, Ducati, give me a fuel gauge. This is the Streetfighter. It's not a track fighter. It's not a Panigale. This is a street-oriented motorcycle. Give me a fuel gauge, guys. I mean, I'm a little OCD. I'm a little anxious. Just give me something where I can see how much gas I have left. I mean, most of the time I'm riding in areas I'm familiar with, but who knows? Like, you don't want to get stranded without gasoline. So that is one thing that I knew going into this, still a bit annoying, but otherwise everything you want is displayed on the screen. You get the air temperature, you get all your various rider aids in the little window displayed to the right. The gearing is really visible, so really nice display update on this 2023 model. One other thing that I noticed while riding this for the first, 50, 60 miles is how smooth the quick shifter is. So I thought the Monster had smooth shifting, and I did mention that it is a little jerky between first and second gear. You don't really get much of that with the Streetfighter. It's very smooth all the way 1 through, I guess I made it up to 6th gear at 65 miles an hour. So very smooth first through 6th gear. Even when you're shifting from first to second with very little throttle, even like 10% throttle, there's not that kind of a jerky jump that I was getting with the Monster. So overall, you'd think, okay, big bike, 208 horsepower. And at the top end, I'm sure this is going to be crazy, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what it can do at the top end once it's broken in. But just a bike about town, a street bike, it is very smooth and very comfortable. So if you're taking this around, even daily driving it, I feel like it would be a very manageable motorcycle. The only thing is your wrist does get a little bit tired modulating that throttle at such small intervals. So if you're not careful, you can really give this bike a lot of power and when you open the throttle too much. But at the low RPMs, you do get a little bit of a wrist fatigue. So I'll have to circle back again to that and see down the road when I'm able to give it more throttle and kind of operate higher in the rep range if I do get the same wrist fatigue I'm getting now. Really no vibrations in the handlebars at these low RPMs, very smooth ride. I did test this up against an S1000R from BMW recently, and that motorcycle was really vibey in the handlebars, especially at around 5,000-6,000 RPM, which is kind of street riding RPM, so I wasn't too impressed with that. So I didn't end up getting the M1000R, which was I was really highly considering. But in terms of ride quality, smoothness, this is really fantastic. The maneuverability, the flickability is very nice. The roads here haven't been too curvy, but in any sort of sweeping bends that I've had, highway ramps, exits, it has been very pleasant. It goes exactly where I tell it to. No sort of instability, and really pleasant overall. So that is basically it for the first impressions. I'm really excited to do some stuff with this motorcycle, some modifications. I'll probably end up doing some carbon bits. Absolutely will be getting rid of these terrible mirrors, and I'll probably use the mirrors I salvaged from my Monster on this. So stay tuned, and feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing a lot of fun stuff on this bike. This turn off, oh yes, perfect. I am close to home. So signing off now. Catch you later, guys, and thanks for watching. Yeah, that shit's quick. What? Yeah. Even below 6,000 RPM, this thing can pull. That is outstanding. So yes, very excited to get this thing unlocked after the service to see what it can do. That is impressive stuff. Let's see if we can take some turns in low gear. So, all right, 3rd gear. Oh yeah, I haven't scrubbed these tires yet, so I got to be careful. But yeah. I do love these familiar roads, though. I will be honest with you. Especially when you have to go on familiar places, use the GPS. That's just not as nice as knowing exactly where every single turn is. Any potential gravel areas, yeah. Yeah, this bike's going to be fun, guys, so stay tuned.